Today, we're going to talk through hobby pushback and how people banding together can create, positive change across the hobby as a whole, whether it's pushing businesses to backtrack or do the right thing on certain decisions they've made, whether it's with certain content creators, whether it's with some graders, as an example. This kind of pushback can create a positive influence. And it's been really good to see some of these things with regards to Beckett over the last week or so, depending on where you see this video. It's been good to see because people have basically come together for a like-minded approach to try and make the hobby better. We talked about this a lot, a few months ago when the whole Magic the Gathering, the 30th anniversary thing happened, and how I spoke about how there was lots of collectors out there, Magic collectors, that were very, annoyed with Hasbro, who manufactures Magic the Gathering, because they came out with this 30th anniversary set that they were looking at charging, I think it was like $1,000 a box for a couple of packs. It was something ridiculous, right? And it sort of went against the entire ethos of Magic the Gathering. And it was good to see that these guys pushed back, so much so to the point that Hasbro stock actually started to be impacted by it, and the mainstream media were talking about it. The product didn't do very well in the end. It started to come back a little bit now, but it was good, to see that from a community stand up for what, the hobby should all be about. And I hate saying the term the hobby because it's a bit wanky, but I think you guys get the point. We saw this a little bit with sports cards, and I talked in that Magic the Gathering video how I wish some of this stuff transferred over to the sports card space, because I feel like a lot of things, slide. We let a lot of these businesses get away with, taking the piss. But it's good to see in the last couple of weeks, like I said, that people pushed back on Beckett. They said, what, we're not happy. Please don't go ahead with this. And Beckett listened. The power of the people, can't go unnoticed when it comes to things like this. We have a voice. Then it goes to things I talk about all the time, where people say this stuff is negative and pushback is no good or anything like that. You just need to sort of, vote with your wallet. It's like, okay, that helps, but it doesn't get you to the end goal, right? If you only being aware of something and you don't spend your money and nobody else is aware of it, so they keep spending their money, you sort of need to talk about it to get that, dialogue going, to make people aware, to have a proper discussion, to try and come up with ways that you can make it better, right? So by talking about it in videos, by talking about it in comments on forums and things like that, you're not doing anything wrong. And I don't want to talk about, cancel culture here. We don't want to be canceling people or canceling some of these businesses for silly mistakes they made. It's like, no, guys, we're unhappy. We want to tell you that we're unhappy, so please make a change. It's been fantastic to see this occur with Beckett. It's also been fantastic to see in the last couple of weeks, the pushback that, the great curator and DAPS Sports got with regards to their fake pack break, and then with regards to maybe potentially, buying subs, which is very clear that DAPS did based on his metrics, as I've talked to before. This pushback these guys are getting, it's not in the sense that we want you cancelled, even though some of these guys have done very bad things. It's more so, you did a bad thing. We're going to make sure that nobody forgets about that bad thing. It's now up to you to try and change for the positive. We're telling you we don't like it, so please do something about it. And then obviously, if people don't change off the back of that, that's where things come a bit more heated, I guess, when it comes to hobby pushback. But for the most part, it's been really positive to see, the average Joe complain on social media that they're not happy with what this business was trying to do, and it's made, a tangible impact out of this business, right? If you think that things are going to stop here with Beckett, I very much doubt that's the case. If it was all a, marketing attempt to try and create some buzz around their business, okay, people won't, lose their jobs out at Beckett. But if it was an actual mistake, like we think it is, people might not lose their jobs, but they're going to have pressure on them to try and turn this around, which in turn creates positive, outcomes for us as customers. Like I said, this whole Magic the Gathering thing, it's a lot to learn from if you are, an individual in the sports card space and you want to understand, okay, what are some things I could be doing to try and make positive change for us as a hobby? We sort of see it across the board, some of these things with PSA in the last couple of months. People have complained about, PSA damaging cards, PSA losing cards, all this sort of stuff. So what did PSA come out and do? Well, they came out and basically said, okay, now on receipt, when the second we get your cards, the second we unbox them, we're going to photograph them and scan them and put them on the website so you can inspect them if you need to. That basically creates more value for us as customers because, where mistakes were happening, they're not happening anymore. Or if they still are happening, you've now got, photographic proof that it either did or didn't happen, right? You guys get what I'm saying. There's positive change here. These businesses are listening to us and thinking, okay, we've probably been a bit slack. We've probably been too quick to charge more money. We've probably not uplifted our processes enough. We've not done more for our customers. But now I can see the pushback is coming. We're going to start changing. And whether they like that or not is irrelevant, right? They're just getting enough pushback from collectors, from investors in this space that they have to make a change. Now, this hasn't always been for the better, as we've seen with BGS and Alt in recent weeks. But off the back of that, they've sort of acknowledged the fact they've received some feedback. I think it's a really, really good thing to see. I'm sure there's, many others that I can't think of right now. But if there are, I'm really excited to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, because it's just been really awesome to see this, exacerbate. It's been, I shouldn't say exacerbate, it's been a lot more frequent, and it seems to be a lot more volume of people, pushing and advocating for this kind of stuff since, 2022 ended. I feel like the back end of 2022, that, 3 to 4 months leading into the end of the year, we saw a lot of dodgy things happen in this space, and dodgy things happen all the time. But we've sort of come out in 2023 with so much more voices and pushback from even bigger people within the hobby. We've seen Lootbox TV call out PSA. We've seen, the guys from Chasing Cardboard do the same thing. Sports Card Investor mentioned me on one of his videos a couple of days ago regarding the whole BGS situation. It's like, yeah, these people would have maybe talked about these things infrequently in the past, but because they've seen so much more buzz from the community and so much more, excitement to talk about these things and to push back on these things, they've now started talking about it. It's become a little bit more mainstream. I know some people have been scared by that, or they don't agree with these guys calling these things out, or they think there's maybe some ulterior motives happening there. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I just think it's a good thing that we're seeing this kind of pushback. So, like I always say, this stuff that I talk about is not being negative, right? You can very clearly see behind me that I'm a huge nerd. I love collecting things. I love collecting cards. I love the hobby. And again, I don't like using that term. I love going to card shows. I love interacting with my fellow collectors, right? So when I call this stuff out and people say I'm just hating, I need to be more positive. It's like, well, you need to look at the big picture, right? By me calling this stuff out, we're expecting change from these businesses, or we're trying to educate people so they too don't get burned. When that happens, we get, a positive outcome, like we've seen with BGS, right? If nobody pushed back, and people like me didn't talk about this, and when I say people like me, there's way bigger channels talking about this that probably had more impact than I did. But if they didn't do those things, we'd be stuck right now having, some BGS slabs that are going to kick down in value because they've decided to change the grading scale overnight. There's positive outcomes off the back of talking about things that are negative, right? This stuff is needed. It's been so good to see the wider hobby, embrace this a little bit, and they band together and show their voice, has worth. We as collectors, we have worth when we talk about things that we want. You can't do things and expect us to sit by anymore. And when I say anymore, it just seems to have been a bit more frequent for people to sort of, take that back foot step and not be as vocal in the last few years. But it's good to see that it's back. I still don't think we're anywhere near where Magic the Gathering community is, because they do a fantastic job at literally voting with their wallets and also voting with their voice. We've learned a lot. I think it could be a little bit better in this space, but these are fantastic signs to see. And I really think that the more of this we see, and the more that this happens, the hobby is going to be, even better moving forward. We're going to be getting more value from these businesses because they understand now that we can't just do things overnight without appropriate consultation, without the appropriate care that these things deserve. So again, you push back, you tell people what you like and what you don't like, and then we get a better outcome in the end. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.